Welcome, everyone, to the Over Under Movies podcast, the show where we take a prominent figure or franchise in the world of filmmaking and ask the simple question, are they overrated or are they underrated? I'm your host, Jason Gong, and I'm joined today by a very special guest. He's a returning guest. He is my dear friend, former roommate, my boss's boyfriend. He's an actor. He is an improv performer.
That's right.
It's Max Beverley.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Jason. I'm so excited for the episode today. I feel like we're going to have a lot to talk about. I've been waiting for this one for a while, so I'm really hyped for it.
Yeah, me too. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, or like the things, even if I mention them, what you like the most.
I probably like the most that I'm your boss's boyfriend. That's probably my defining feature. No, me and Jason were roommates for many years. So let's see. I love nerdy stuff as well as horror-y stuff. So, the movie that we're talking about today is perfect. I love the weird, the gross stuff. And I feel like there's a lot to like.
Yeah, that's a good lead into what we're going to talk about. The one trait I did leave out about you is that you are also a Nosferatu cosplayer.
That's true. Check the link in the show notes if you want to see, or maybe just your Twitter page.
Yeah, we'll put a picture up in the YouTube video of this and our Instagram and other stuff too.
Yeah, that's right. I dress up as Nosferatu. I put a bald cap on. The bald cap ripped. I went back to the Halloween store. I bought 2 bald caps. Another bald cap ripped. And at that point, our other roommate, Melissa, was like, Max, you have to put it on loosely. If you put it on tightly, the third one is going to rip, and you're going to have to go out to the store again. So I loosely put a bald cap on to be Nosferatu.
Yeah, if you're not watching the video, you can't see, but Max has a lot of hair. Mm-hmm. I guess that definitely affects how well a bald cap works.
I guess so. Yeah, maybe I just got it too small though.
Oh,
maybe. I don't know. But anyways, I was a big fan. I had a poster up of Nosferatu in my room. But when I moved in with Jason's boss, I guess she's partly the boss of me because no more Nosferatu in the bedroom. It's a giant poster. It's like, I don't know, like 5 feet tall. Wait, maybe that's the size of a normal poster. It's a big poster.
Yeah.
And it's in my office now. But
okay.
Nosferatu watches me while I was.
So he's still there. That's good. Yeah, so today we're talking about Nosferatu, but we're not talking about the original 1922 film Nosferatu. We are talking about the new, what year is it? 2024?
That's right.
Yep. We're talking about the 2024 film by Robert Eggers, Nosferatu.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big fan of Robert Eggers. That's partly why I was so excited for this movie. I would say I'm probably a Robert Eggers fan first and a Nosferatu fan second, if I had to rank it. But I was excited for the movie nonetheless. I would say that The Lighthouse is probably one of my favorite movies, top 5. I love it. It's weird and wacky and kind of creepy. And I think, I like all of the movies that Robert Eggers does.
Nice.
I always have to be really careful to not say Roger Eggers because that's a movie critic, I think, right?
Roger Ebert, yeah. And they're
right.
But like Robert Eggers and Roger Ebert, they're almost like Spoonerisms.
There's
of
also
each other.
Edgar Wright, who also really messes me up in it. And I know we shouldn't have said it because now I'm gonna have trouble.
Robert Eggers. Let's just say it 3 times. Robert Eggers, Robert Eggers, Robert Eggers.
Oh my God, he's in the room with us. He joined. Whoa. Have you ever seen him talk, actually?
I saw him talk. There's been this movie or an interviewer that's been floating around Twitter because he just interviewed Denzel Washington and people think it's a really bad interview. So they're digging up every other awkward interview he's ever done. Okay. And he has one with Robert Eggers. Yeah. That's pretty funny.
Robert Eggers, when you hear him talk, he's kind of like a nerdy guy. I don't know. He like looks cool. He's got like a big beard and I don't know. He looks kind of tough. But then when he talks, you're like, oh, you're a nerdy director.
Yeah. He looks the part of like, okay, here's like an auteur who does scary things, probably a metalhead, but then like he talks and he's just a geek.
Yeah, which I love.
I do too.
But one of the things that I like so much about his movies, he focuses a lot on folklore, which he pulls in a lot to be completely fair, I've seen The Witch, I've seen The Lighthouse. I haven't seen The Northman yet.
Okay.
But I know that even, for all of his movies, he always pulls in a lot of folklore. And that's what I was kind of like looking for in this one, because the original Nosferatu 1922 is like, it doesn't have like a ton of information in it. Not like a ton of exposition. When it's a silent movie, it's going to be tough to do that, but they do some of the stuff like Knock is the helper who's Thomas's boss,
Right.
who like turns crazy. He does this like sorcery witchcraft stuff, and that's in the original one too. Oh yeah, and then there was the Romani people in the beginning, which also was new. Oh, I mean, kind of. He stops in at a village, and there's people who are like, oh, don't go up to the castle, it's cursed or whatever. But this one was very explicitly like, these are people and they're doing like a ritual, and they kill a corpse, that's in the ground with like a ritual, and that was completely new. So that was cool. I like that cool part.
Right. So that's like the folklore type of stuff that you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. So like I was saying, I have seen the original one, and one thing that I was talking about was it's really similar. The plot is really similar. Definitely a lot of embellishment, but I was surprised to see how similar it was.
Yeah, that's cool to hear. I didn't really know anything about Nosferatu. I knew that the original was a Dracula movie, that they just didn't have the rights to Dracula.
Yeah, that's right. It was in the 20s. The person who made it wanted to do a Dracula movie, but yeah, like you said, didn't make it. And I was telling you earlier, there was this thing where they released the movie and then it got like copyrighted or whatever, and they like stole or like took confiscated all of the copies. And it's like a miracle that we actually still have the Nosferatu today, which is cool.
It's crazy. I feel like I heard the story of how they saved it. It was like the director's wife. I actually don't know. I'm going to look it up after, and if that's wrong, we're cutting this.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, the director's wife actually wanted to make sure that her husband's vision of this can't be right.
No, keep going.
Just was preserved. So she snuck into the lot, which had been obviously completely shut down by a big Bram Stoker estate. And they had like guards with guns and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
But
she lowered by rope from the ceiling. There was some lasers.
Yeah, and she spread out like this.
Yeah, she had a bag of sand in her pocket that she put on the reels of the movie where they were on a pedestal.
Yeah, exactly. It was crazy. They should make a movie about that, honestly. Yeah, so that's the story of Nosferatu, the original, and obviously he's become sort of a beloved icon in film, like to the extent that Max does not cosplay as Nosferatu. He dressed as Nosferatu once for Halloween.
Yeah.
And also it was actually a costume of Willem Dafoe playing a guy playing Nosferatu.
I need to. So where I'm at is first I'm a Nosferatu, or first I'm a Willem Dafoe lover, and then I'm a Robert Eggers lover, and then I'm a Nosferatu lover.
All right. So for future reference for me, like posters of Robert Eggers and Willem Dafoe, good Christmas present?
Yes. Good.
Okay, good. Okay, because you're getting a Lorcana deck this year.
Okay, perfect.
But future years, I'll need to know.
So this movie, having someone who has not seen the original, what did you think about like the overarching plot of it all?
Yeah, I was curious because I'm also not. I realized as I was watching it, I guess I don't know anything about Dracula either. I know that Mina Harker is the character. I guess that that the woman in Nosferatu is based on. Anyway, the main character of this movie is played by Lily Rose Depp. It's about her relationship with the vampire.
Yeah.
I guess vampires in this are Nosferatus, because Nosferatu's name is
Count Orlok.
Count Orlok.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is a little silly. And then they don't say vampires, but they say Nosferatu.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I think that is right. That's definitely something that was fleshed out a lot more of is her relationship with Nosferatu. And even like the movie starts with it, and it's like
ends with it.
Yeah, absolutely. In the original, you can kind of just be like, oh, he's like haunting her dreams, but this one's a lot more like, no, she's like a part of him in a way.
Yeah, it's interesting the way this movie handles like dreams versus reality, because things would happen and then characters would wake up from a dream
yeah.
as if they were dreaming it. And then later they'd be like, oh yeah, all that stuff happened physically in reality.
Yeah.
So,
One thing that I thought was cool was in the 1922 Nosferatu, it's like black and white, right? But they can do this thing where they can like tint the movie. So all of the night scenes are tinted blue and all of the day scenes are tinted orange.
oh,
And the fact of whether it's night or day is really important, right? Because it's like that's when Nosferatu is going to be around, or like, you know, it's the sunlight that like ultimately kills him. So I think that's really like an interesting usage in the original movie, and they definitely use those two options in this movie a lot.
yeah.
I think it's not as cut and dry as like blue equals night and orange equals day, because there was some scenes shot in front of like a fire at night,
Right.
and that whole scene is like orange. But I did think that was interesting that even some of the like the blue scenes are, when you look at them, they're like nearly black and white, you know?
Yeah.
They're so desaturated. It's
Definitely.
basically like you're watching a black and white movie.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Like the opening sequence, I thought it was just in black and white. It starts with her and Nosferatu. I'm just gonna call Count Orlok Nosferatu for most of this. But it starts with like her summoning him, her like almost doing a prayer to summon an evil companionship, and then they hook up, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a dream and it's kind of not. And that whole sequence is like you described, it looks almost black and white.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought the whole movie was going to look like. I don't think I watched the trailer for this. And then when it jumped to the next scene and there was color, I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so my first time viewing any Nosferatu media and not knowing anything, I guess, about the story of Dracula, I think it's cool. I didn't realize how much of that story is about the relationship between the female lead and Dracula. I knew that Dracula was a terrorizing force in her life and that she was the main character. I didn't know that, you know, she had been the one to kind of summon him, that he was like so infatuated with her, and that the only way to defeat him, this is a full spoilers podcast, by the way,
Yeah, absolutely.
is to like, was for her to be the one to summon him again and consummate this bond between them in order to, yeah. So the way they defeat Nosferatu, let's just jump into it,
Let's get out of the way.
is they just have to bone down until the sun comes up.
It's weird because I also was thinking the phrase "bone down" for some reason.
That's
Because what I was going to mention was it's really similar in the 1922, except they don't bone down.
Oh, they don't bone down in the original?
No, she is lying in bed suggestively, and he does bite her neck and maybe kind of grab her chest. But like the ending is really similar. Of like he drinks her blood until the sun comes up, and then he looks at it and does like a, and then he puffs into smoke. Which I was wondering how much they were going to do like beat for beat, and it's pretty similar. He doesn't, you know. There's like literally like a little pile of ashes,
Right.
which is like kind of funny.
Yeah.
I saw it and I was like, come on.
Yeah.
But then after that, they have this like I think it's like the final shot. They have Orlok's castle and they do like a really fast time lapse, and it's like falls into ruin.
Oh, that's cool.
So it really is like and they lived happily ever after of like, and Orlok's castle was destroyed. Or, you know, it fell into ruin.
Wait, does the woman survive in the original?
No, she also dies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in that way, it is really similar. But I think I was expecting them not really to do the whole "and we all lived happily ever after" of like the castle is destroyed part.
Yeah, it's quite a sad final shot in this one. It's like the two of them dead in embrace, just surrounded and covered by blood.
Yeah, two of them being Nosferatu
and
Ellen.
Yeah,
Ellen or Helen?
I think it's Ellen.
Ellen.
Yeah. So that's how the movie ends.
Yeah.
But like everything leading up to it, you know, the story is really about her relationship with her husband as well, played by Nicholas Hoult in this movie. And he is the one who like goes and gets Count Orlok. He is put on an assignment from his boss to bring Count Orlok basically back to their home city. Orlok is off living in Transylvania, and he wants to be closer to Ellen. And yeah, basically the first act of the movie is about a real estate transaction so that Count Orlok can get his castle, which I feel like it sounds like the castle is like a pretty big icon of the first movie. I feel like in this movie, the castle that he buys at least is not really utilized that much.
You mean the one that's in Germany?
Yeah.
That's in their hometown. Yeah, they no, they don't do it that. There's not that much going on either.
In the original?
Yeah, any of like the Count Orlok's castle is in Transylvania.
Oh, okay.
For the original too.
Yeah.
I think one of the cool parts about this movie is like the travel aspect of and I like that they kind of gave that enough weight in this one of like the cool sequences of him like going through the forest. And then like when the giant black coach comes up to like
That
pick
was
him
cool.
up. Yeah, I think a lot of that introduction was really cool.
I thought so too. Yeah. So he's like traveling. I really like movies where people just like kind of walk around in the wilderness. Hunt for the Wilder People is one of my favorite movies, and that's just two guys going through the woods in the mountains. So I like that sequence a lot. When he gets into the stagecoach, it's like it's driven by no one, so it's like supposed to be really creepy, and it is. But my friend Carlos, my friend and coworker, he turned to me at that moment and he said, "Would you get in?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd be really tired of walking at this point." And then the guy in front of us turned around and said, "Excuse me, please be quiet during the movie." And then I didn't talk for the rest of the movie. And that guy, he was right.
Well, I mean,
No, I think he was right.
there was so we also did go with your boss and my girlfriend, and there's a part in the very beginning where he goes off to leave to go to work, and Nicholas Holt and then Ellen is like in bed with her cat, and she's like, "Don't go." And I wanted to turn to my girlfriend and be like, "That's what you do every time you go to work.
Every day.
Every day you go to work. That's me."
Literally. That's so funny.
Big cat motif.
Yeah.
Big cat motif in this movie.
We talk about this a lot on the podcast, and I think we might even just change what this podcast is about. But like, movie cats are so cool. All movie animals are dope. And when we watch movies, me and Dylan, who couldn't be on this podcast because he couldn't get off work to come to the 5 o'clock screening of Nosferatu in the office building that I work at. But we talk about movie cats all the time and how they must be so hard to train. How do you get them to hit their marks? This cat was always, I mean, all it had to do was really jump onto a bed and then be in the bed for certain shots.
But it was so patient and well-mannered. It's like when a movie cat does so well, I'm just watching the cat being like, man, that cat is doing a great job.
Yeah.
It's distracting how well the cat is doing.
It's like distracting to the movie, but it draws you into that one aspect of the movie more.
It's a good point.
The cat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do think, I'll say that the audience here of Comcast employees and their loved ones, pretty still audience, not that reactive to such a scary movie. But I think when that cat first enters the scene, I heard quite a few awes from the audience.
We kind of won the audience over there.
Yeah.
But we kind of ran right up to the introduction of Orlok. And that's kind of something that I definitely want to talk about.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty iconic when Count Orlok comes in 1922. Because there's that frame of him standing in the doorway. And Thomas is like all freaked out when he sees him. I was really waiting for that shot, but they didn't exactly do it in the whole like sitting down at the table scene with like the fire. I don't know. It took them a long time to like show Count Orlok.
Yeah. And I feel like it wasn't like a big moment. Like they had some moments of him silhouetted, but it wasn't that much of like a, whoa, this is the guy. I do feel like Orlok was cool and scary, but it wasn't as iconic as I think that original movie is.
Yeah. Do you think they thought like they were worried that people were going to think the mustache was funny? So they were like, we got to ease them into the mustache. We can't just do a full frontal on the mustache.
They really did ease you into the mustache.
Because I was watching it and I was like, is that a mustache on his face?
They did so many shots of like him on the side. They did shots of like just his mouth talking where you do see the mustache, but you're like, well, what? Yeah, they gave Nosferatu a mustache in this. And I feel like This guy should just have no hair, right?
I kept looking at it like the entire movie. I couldn't stop looking at his mustache.
I guess everyone had a mustache. Did Nicholas Holt have a mustache? He didn't, right?
No, he just had the mutton chops.
Yeah, but his friend, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, had a mustache, and that was like one that was curled up old timey style.
Yeah, that was good.
I thought he had a good mustache.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
I mean, so appearance was like, I don't know. I kind of do think that like just though I think one of the things that was most powerful about Nosferatu in 1922 is just the sight of Nosferatu is very strong, right? Even like the shot of him doing the I'm coming up from the coffin with like my arms crossed, you know, like that also is so iconic that it's just the sight of him that is scary, and I feel like maybe some of that was lost here.
yeah, I think so too. I told you on the walk over, but my thoughts were like the one thing that I thought was a little weak in this movie was that I don't think Nosferatu himself was that scary. I don't think he was that scary looking. Obviously, you pointed out the mustache. And then I also think like instead of being like this decrepit, pale creature, he's just kind of like a guy that's really big and like bony. So, you know, he's got kind of sunken in features still, but like
Yeah.
he doesn't feel as otherworldly as the original.
Yeah. But that being said, I think Bill Skarsgård did a fantastic job with him.
He's great.
The voice work was really good. I think that was really immersive the entire time.
Yeah, especially
agree?
I do think his first appearance, like him talking, was really good. It was like surround sound because we were in this echoey
Right, yeah.
dining chamber with him where it felt almost ethereal and you couldn't really tell where he was speaking from.
Yeah, that was a really cool trick that they did where they kept having him walk off frame and then like show up on a different place in the room, like in one uninterrupted shot. Oh, that's also something that I wanted to say. When for the silent movie, they didn't have a lot of like elaborate like tracking and stuff kind of technology. So it's a lot of just static shots, but sometimes they have like a pan in, you know? And I think that they kind of took the energy of that with this movie of having a lot of long uninterrupted shots, and I think that worked with like we were talking about Nosferatu, like kind of hanging out in the shadows, walking off frame, and then sometimes they had like the sort of like screen gag, not like a screen gag, but like they have the frame like pan over to the side, and you think that there's going to be a jump scare there, but then it pans all the way back to the person,
Yeah.
and you think that there's going to be a jump scare there again, and things like that.
Yeah, it was really cool. The camera work really, I think, elevated, you know, the horror of this or the thrills and just like the tension that they were trying to build. There was one sequence, and it was really simple, that stood out to me. It was when Ellen was just like kind of rising out of bed, almost like doing this herself, but like she almost like floats up and the camera's like pulling back as she knows that. And then she almost like glides out of the bed because she's so light and she's like possessed. And the way the camera follows her, I thought was just really cool and like creepy, eerie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's some of the stuff that it feels like Robert Eggers is best at. You know, like thinking about the lighthouse of it's such a small space and all of those shots are like relatively static, but just like really well composed. And yeah, I think a lot of his sort of specialty style shown through here. One thing that I was looking for is I feel like Robert Eggers does best on like more small scale stuff, like The Witch and The Lighthouse were so small scale, like small actors and also you know, very controlled sets. And I was really wondering how this movie was going to shake out with the, you know, like a lot bigger scope of a story.
Yeah. Bigger story, like more famous actors, I would say. Yeah, just seeing him, this had to have been like his highest budget film. And I haven't seen his other films, so that's another area where you're more of the expert for this. But I am aware that they're like indie features that kind of like put A24 on the map and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It felt like right up his alley because he likes to do a lot of the creepy folklore stuff like we were talking about. Yeah, I just think that he did a great job with like knowing how to make he makes very tense movies, right? Where it's a horror, but it's not just about there's a monster that's going to get us. So much of it is focused on the people freaking out that there is a monster that's going to get you. And I think that was one of the most compelling things about this movie, was not just like, oh, Count Orlok is coming, but like seeing the people tear each other apart
Yeah.
because they feel his influence, which I think worked really well.
Yeah, like it's hard to really peg down all the themes of this movie, but like it explores the relationship between the male lead and the female lead. You know, there's almost like like one of man's greatest fears is just being cucked, and that's valid, and it's a valid thing to explore, and that's kind of what this movie is about. Is like this woman had this relationship with a vampire, and then she gets married to like the love of her life, but then this vampire wants to like belittle this man, humiliate him, steal back his wife, and so it explores that relationship and whether or not it's gonna fall apart. Like there's moments where you're like, these two they're not gonna make it through. It explores like the limits of their friendship with this other character played by Aaron Taylor Johnson and that character's wife. They kind of take our two leads into their homes, try to protect them, and they find themselves unable to do so because of Count Orlok. And yeah, I think that is the really interesting side of this. It's not just like, okay, the vampire's going to get some good kills in and that's where we're going to get all the horror from.
Yeah.
It's like about the people.
Yeah, and they gave a lot of weight to Ellen's experience as well, which like in the original, it's a little bit more of like oh my God, I'm seeing things when I dream. And then he comes and he's just like, wow, I really want to suck her blood. But this one was a lot more like, she has a history, she has had like struggles with like mental health. There's a lot of that in this movie. I think it's like easy to say any movie is like, oh, the plot is just a metaphor for this person's journey or whatever.
Right.
But I think there was partway through this movie, I was, someone says, I think maybe like Willem Dafoe's is like, he is a manifestation of her melancholy, like of the turmoil that she's felt. And I think that when he said that, it took me a minute to be like, how much of the movie should be taken literally? I mean, I guess it is pretty clearly literally, because like he is an actual monster, but so much of it is like him controlling people's dreams and him like coming into people's minds and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of the themes are just about like how we deal with our mental health traumas, trauma responses, and the way that causes us to act around others. And like the characters, their friends that were taking care of them, it really tested their limits of like what they're willing to do for someone struggling. And they were like, her friend was like, I love you, just know that, which I thought was really nice. But then she dies.
Do you think they put that scene in just to be able to, what's the name of the rule of two women to each other?
To pass the Bechdel test?
Yeah, that's right. Because I was watching and I was like, is it going to happen here? Because it's the two women characters, and they were talking to each other, and they mentioned God.
Oh,
does that count as a male
good
character?
question. Good question. Let's not get into that. Yeah, I imagine The Lighthouse does not pass the Bechdel test.
Well, there's two actors and they're both men, so
okay, so that makes it tough.
No, there's also a mermaid, but no,
spoilers.
It certainly does not. Spoilers. But no, I liked how much weight they gave to her experience of being like, yeah, I have a past. Yeah, I had a difficult time with like, being like depressed or, these feelings. And then I met this guy and that was good for me for a while, but also there's going to be things. It's not like I'm cured now. Like there was a time that like she felt a lot of stress. It was probably a combination of like it sounded like they had like some financial concerns of like he really needed some money to be able to like pay off a loan that he mentioned right at the top of the movie, which and then the combination of him like leaving too. Which I thought was interesting, of like these factors combining to kind of like make her have this difficult time in her life as manifested by Orlok.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, the whole time when he was leaving, I was like, okay, he's gonna like, this movie is a metaphor for like, don't just leave your wife when she tells you not to. It was really interesting seeing the fact that the relationship was already so strained before Orlok entered the picture. And you're right, it's like all those factors combined is really what summoned him, is because they were already kind of teetering on the edge. Did you think this movie was scary?
Not really. No. I was actually surprised at how many jump scares there were. I guess his other movies have a few jump scares, but I think that was one of the other things where so much of the like what we were talking about horror of the original movie is just the presence of Orlok, and like he's just such a discomforting presence that it kind of is really effective. And then there's also the idea of like he's going to come into your hometown and spread plague and kill all your people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I wasn't that scared. I think they did a good job at making his arrival scary. I thought that was really cool, where there was definitely a moment where I was like, oh my God, he's like here and he's going to like start fucking them up with like the plague and everything. So I think they did that well of making it tense, but I don't think it was super scary.
Yeah, I would agree. Like the tension was felt throughout. It was atmospherically very scary, but there wasn't that many particular jump scares that really got me or particular moments. I will say that at one point in the movie, my butthole literally clenched. So that was like a point in its favor because I don't know. My body just did something that it doesn't normally do as a fear response.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell was that? But it was when Orlok is like on top of Nicholas Hoult in the bed and like goes to bite him, but like for a brief shot he turns into a naked and bloody Lily Rose Depp,
right. Yeah.
Through the power of editing. That for some reason like that cut just freaked me out, and I like tensed up really hard. And so there was at least one moment that I know scared me, and then I found the movie to be like scary the rest of the time. Is that like what you're looking for in a horror movie, to feel fear throughout or to get jump scared? Like, what do you go into one of these looking for?
Yeah. I feel like jump scares can be good at like really small amounts. I feel like I generally don't like them, but at small amounts that's good. But I think they did a pretty good job at making the like the despair of it, right? Of like he's this awful thing, like force, and he is going to like destroy everything that you care about. And I like that. I like that a lot. But I think like scary in the traditional sense, like it's not like an Insidious, or one of those kind of movies where like the point of it is to like be scared the whole time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was really cool though.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna pull up some reviews on Letterboxd.
Okay.
Usually, the top rated reviews can be kind of funny or really insightful.
Okay, sweet.
I haven't looked at any of these yet. This movie's not even in theaters yet as of this recording. So we'll see. This one says, I left the theater and overheard an older critic sigh and say to their colleagues something along the lines of, surprise, surprise, Eggers does the exact same thing again. Eye roll emoji. And then this reviewer continues, like, I am so sorry that he decided to make yet another wildly atmospheric and artfully crafted movie with care for the subject matter, which makes for a wonderful theater-going experience. So that's the top review on here. Someone who really likes it, they gave it 4.5 stars.
I was wondering how it would be received, because it has really good reviews on like Rotten Tomatoes. And I feel like also, I wonder if you get points for being, for like doing a movie classic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because it's so faithful, is it going to just like farm positive reviews?
Right.
Because you did faithful the, movie that's already a classic in like movie history.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, it's really like the PS5 remaster of the original, it sounds like.
Yeah, it kind of has its bases covered too, because the film bros are probably going to enjoy it. I feel like film bros generally like Robert Eggers, right? And so I feel like it has its bases covered. I am really kind of interested in if like it does well in the box office. Like, do people, does it have like widespread appeal? Do people tell their friends about it and say like, oh, it was really fun, I really liked it, you should go and see it?
I'm very curious too, because like this movie, obviously it's marketed as a horror movie, but like it's coming out around Christmas time. It's not like a Halloween release. It's not being released the way that other horror movies generally are released. Yeah. So
they did mention Christmas.
So it is a Christmas movie.
They said like Christmas tide.
Yeah, they said Christmas tide is coming, and the character that says that dies the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah, spoilers for this movie, but 2 children die, which I thought
Yeah.
was ballsy.
I was like, whoa, damn.
Yeah, that was
Like on
nuts.
screen too.
Yeah, that was crazy.
He sucks their blood out and tosses their body aside.
Yeah, when they first showed up, I told Carlos, "These kids are so annoying. I hope they're not in the movie." And then
Jason,
I manifested.
You manifested their deaths.
I'm so sorry to those kids.
That's messed up.
This one, they didn't leave the stars, but it just says Lily Rose Depp has the juice. What a stunning physical performance. That's so true. We haven't talked about that.
Yeah. We talked about Bill Skarsgård, but in the very beginning, I was like first kind of feeling like, is Lily Rose Depp kind of doing the most, as one might say, of like doing too much? But then once I actually saw what she was working with, I was like, oh no, this is fantastic. This
The
is really
right
good.
amount. Yeah. No. And like to be able to do the most, I think also requires quite a bit of talent. I couldn't like, obviously when actors get a role like this, they're going to jump at it and be like, okay, I get to like do seizures for an hour of the movie and roll my eyes back in my head and froth at the mouth.
Put my fingers in my mouth.
Yeah.
And,
all that weird shit.
do the
like
crazy back bend.
everyone's going to be like into that. But like she did such a good job and she brought a level to it that I think a lot of people just can't imitate.
Yeah. There was a certain point where I was like, is she like the sort of like thing that's driving the horror even more than Orlok? Just because, she is the representation of like the innocent character, the beautiful young woman. And her being like infected by Count Orlok is
so
like
true.
the horror element to it.
Yeah, like parts where she was like her eyes rolling back. There was one part where she did like a devilish smile. I thought all of that stuff was a little
that was
scarier.
wild.
Yeah.
Where he like talked through her.
Yeah. That was nuts.
Yeah, that was cool. I feel like that was definitely a time that got a rise out of the audience.
Yeah.
After that happened, everyone was like, sheesh.
And then, like I said, that moment where my butthole clenched was when Nosferatu turned into her, or like, it was a hard cut between the two of them in the same position.
Yeah.
And she was just bloody and naked. And I was like, oh, whoa.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts. I feel like I went into this, I try to be impartial, but I think I have been going into movies being like, all right, another Nepo baby. Let's see how well they do. And I feel like she was just really good.
Yeah.
Shout out Nepo babies.
Yeah. And I guess to round out the cast, for Nicholas Hoult, I feel like a lot of times, maybe I haven't seen enough movies with Nicholas Hoult in, but I feel like he gets the role of the goofy guy. So I feel like I don't have the best perception of him, but I think he did a great job.
Yeah, he was really good.
It's not like I hate him or anything, but like I feel like sometimes he sticks out when I watch a movie. I'm just like, oh yeah, there's Nicholas Hoult. But I feel like you really just blended into the role.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I think especially in the X-Men movies, because when he's Beast, he's just Nicholas Hoult, but with a bunch of blue paint and fur on.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that's the movie I was thinking of too.
Yeah. No, he's got the face of like a Victorian boy or whatever.
Yeah.
So this was like the right role for him. Originally, this part was going to be played by Harry Styles.
Whoa.
And that deal fell through.
Okay.
Luckily.
I'm kind of happy about that. And then Willem Dafoe, obviously, always does a great job.
Yeah, he was so good. He plays the Van Helsing equivalent, who I think is just named Van France or something.
Yeah.
Or Von France. I don't know. It was a silly name.
They changed all the names for the 1922 movie as well, but I don't think he really has that much of a character. There's not that much vampire slaying in the 1922 movie because it's really just like, oh shit, there's a plague and everybody runs around and they're all scared, and then Nosferatu goes to bite her and then he just puffs into smoke.
Yeah.
So there's like not a lot of vampire slaying that needs to be done. I was glad that they didn't make it more of like a dramatic action sequence or something.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not really what the ending of the movie should be. But I was glad that at least those characters had something to do that was urgent,
I
of
agree.
like they're trying to kill him, but they can't physically slay him,
Yeah, it gave them a quest. They had to do their part, which is to destroy his coffin and the ground from whence he came.
Yeah.
But really, it's Ellen who gets to defeat him again by boning down till the sun comes up.
True.
Which as I was watching it, I was like, this is insane. This is a
Yeah.
crazy way to defeat your villain.
Yeah.
But I think
It's
you're right. It's like better than a third act fight sequence.
Yeah, it was quite a sexual movie.
Yeah.
There was a lot of sexual elements, and I think Robert Eggers generally does that of like sexuality being a desire that sometimes should be resisted or like can be corrupting. I think not in a bad way, but like I don't know. There's definitely a lot of sexual elements in this one because there's the triangle, which really it is kind of a triangle, right? Of Lily Rose Depp and Nicholas Holt's character and Bill Skarsgård's character.
Yeah. It's interesting because like her summoning Nosferatu in the first opening sequence and then boning down with him, that's like what's inviting the evil in the first time, but then defeating the evil also comes from boning down.
Oh, interesting. I didn't think about that.
It's you didn't think of all the ways boning down what they represent in this movie.
If this story is a circle, boning down is noon. It's the top of the clock, you know.
She also bones down with her husband at one point, which is good. And I feel like that was at first meant to be like weird, scary, because it's right after they have this fight. But then in some ways it was kind of empowering. She was like, let him watch. She's talking about Orlok because he's always watching them.
Right.
She's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to show this guy that I can get boned down by the man that I love instead of him.
Yeah, I wonder about her character because it's in the like I was saying in the 1922 one, she really is just kind of like a maiden to be saved or to tragically die because she's constantly kind of like putting her hand to her forehead and swooning because there's like a monster that's waking in her dreams. And I liked that they gave her a lot more agency in this one. She is still kind of someone who waits around and tries. I don't know. I mean, I guess to be fair, she does decide at the end of like, I'm gonna do this with Orlok to save everyone.
Yeah, she makes a choice to bone down till the sun comes up to save everyone.
It's a great way of putting it.
Thanks, Max. We're really eloquent on this podcast. Yeah, but I think like the agency extends even further. Like at one point, she's bedridden, she's having these fits, so they keep giving her the ether, where I guess they're just chloroforming her to help her sleep. But then Willem Dafoe comes in and he's like, "Can you guys stop drugging this woman and let her speak, please?"
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool. They kind of like specifically through dialogue called it out. They're like, "No, this woman that you're calling crazy is not crazy. What she's saying is true. Stop drugging her and silencing her."
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Yeah, so I thought that was cool. What would you give this movie out of 5 potential stars?
I think I'd give it a hearty 4. I want to say 4.5, but I'm gonna stick with 4 until I see it a second time.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I was really on the edge of like a 4.5. I think the fact that Orlok wasn't that scary looking really does knock it down a little bit. I just don't know if because I really do think this is like a fairly, no movie is perfect, but for what this movie's trying to do, it does almost everything perfectly. But I think that what we also talked about how like we didn't really feel scared. I think this could have been a movie that does all the really cool things it did and then was also a little bit scarier. So I think I'm also sitting at a 4.
Yeah, for sure. There's one more part that I want to talk about is if you read the Wikipedia article for the 1922 movie, it has this part where it talks about like fear of the other, right? And it's talking about how the movie is based on like there's this guy who lives in a foreign country who's really rich, but he's not like us, and he buys property in our hometown. And also the real estate salesman is also the villain as well, right? And in the 1922 movie, he canonically is also Jewish, which is pretty problematic, seeing that it came out in Germany in 1922. So I feel like there is a fair amount of kind of like loaded ideas in Nosferatu of like also the idea that the person who's from another land comes to our town and it also spreads sickness and disease is like a common, racist trope. And I was wondering how they were going to handle that as well. And there's this like kind of concerning scene where like the entire town is trying to like become like a mob, and they're chasing after Knock, who's like the real estate salesman. And I feel like that was the part that I was most uncomfortable at, because they're basically being like, it's a good thing that this town is a mob and is trying to find this devilish Jewish man who sold property to a demon, which is pretty upsetting.
That's crazy.
But I think they took a fair amount. Yeah, I think they took a fair amount out of that for Nosferatu for this movie, which I thought was good. I mean, ultimately, there's always going to be like the fear of the other,
right?
You know, like all of that is ingrained into also like Dracula as well.
Right. He's just a guy from an Eastern European sounding country.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
He buys property in your backyard.
Yeah, I never really thought of that, but that's good to know.
Yeah, but I mean, at least I feel like they took out some, or most of those.
I think you're right. There wasn't any part of this movie where I was watching and I was like, this is problematic. And I'm sure there's, I have my own blind spots and stuff, but like overall, I would say like this movie is not going for those types of tropes. This is Nosferatu really is just like an otherworldly force and not really a stand-in for foreign people.
Yeah.
I think they did a good job just making him, like, if anything, a stand-in for like one's own darkness. There's a part where Willem Dafoe says, like, does the darkness come from inside of us, right, or is it like
from beyond? I think that was like to Ellen, or maybe Ellen said it or something like that. One thing that I also thought was interesting was the like Romani people in the beginning. That was not a part of the one in the 1922, but they obviously are like a people who have been like, oppressed before.
Yep.
And they are some of the only ones who are like actively doing something to stop a vampire from coming out, because they do that ritual where they kill it in like its coffin.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting, of like Robert Eggers' connection of like folklore being a tool that like, the common people, or, people who could be oppressed, like have, and like listening to what they are doing as essentially like a voice of authority in the movie.
That was cool, because like when you first see that sequence, you're like, these guys are doing something really freaky and scary, and you view it as like they're doing something primitive. But then as it's recontextualized by the rest of the film, you're like, these people were right. And
like, damn, I wish somebody else did that 3 years ago when Count Orlok first stirred.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah. Any other final thoughts on Nosferatu 2024?
No, I think that's it.
Cool.
I can't wait for the director's cut where they give him the Superman edit to take the mustache off in CGI.
Oh my gosh. Do you think that would improve the movie?
I'll watch it and let you know.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, thanks for being here, Max. Thanks for listening and or watching, guys. As always, you can find the rest of our content on YouTube. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your pods. You can join our Patreon page. There's a free tier now. You can join our Discord to have conversations with us like this, where we talk about movies and have a good time. Max, where can people find you? Do you have anything you want to plug?
I'm not really on socials, but I do some shows in improv theaters in Philadelphia. So if you're in Philadelphia and you want to see some live theater, you can go to like SideQuest or Comedy Sports or any of the local improv theaters around.
Yep, I've been to many of your shows, I think, and not to glaze you up too much, and you are my friend, but I think you're one of the funniest performers in the local scene. Yeah.
Second to
my boss friend, if you're watching, you're the only person funnier than Max. Friend's also been on this podcast. Right. Yeah, check out Max's previous episode with my boss.
Dune 2.
Dune Part 2. Yeah.
Oof, can't wait for the third one.
For that Dune Part 3, dude.
We gotta stop. We gotta stop here. Don't let me go on.
All right. Thanks again for listening and watching, guys. See you at the movies.
Thanks.
Bye. All right. Nice.